Hi, my name is Marco, and welcome to a new episode of Comic Rants, a series where I just kind of talk about whatever it is I got going on in my brain. It's all comic related. This week is about big versus small risk investments. Now, before we get into the video, quick reminder, I am doing a giveaway for some awesome comics, including a sweet John Romita signature on the Ultimate Spider-Man 100. And also, very short notice, I know, but Saturday, tomorrow, I will be at LexiPopCon. My good friend Adam from Beard of Pop invited me, and so I will have a little booth there where I'm going to be selling some comics, some pops, and have my prints, for sale. The pops and stuff some of it might be from me, but I think most of it's going to be from the shop that I work at, Pops Comics. So I'm excited. If you're in the area, stop by and say hello. I'd love to see you. Now, let's go ahead and talk about, like I said, big versus small investment. Big risk versus small risk investments. So, not to be confused with like big and small like monetary values. So not saying, making a $10 investment versus a $10,000 investment. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. Although money can sometimes factor into the risk, it's not exactly what I'm talking about today. So to give some examples, a small risk investment would be getting something that we know is coming up, something that is definite. So I would consider New Mutants 98, first Deadpool, to be a small risk. The price is up there, but it's a small risk, because we know we're getting another Deadpool movie, at least. I've heard rumors about some kind of animated TV show or something like that. And then, we could be getting more movies. He could be in an Avengers movie. He could be in an X-Men movie. I don't know. But I think that is a very solid comic to buy right now. Even if you're paying full value for it, it's a good book. I think it will continue to climb. I think the climb has slowed down significantly. Don't get me wrong. But now we're kind of at the phase where we need to wait for, news. So, a director is, I don't know, I haven't been entirely keeping up, but, if they haven't talked about a director already, if they picked one out, or, announcements of this character is going to be in the movie or whatever, or, obviously when we get to a point of getting trailers out and then the movie coming out, the book is going to just climb and climb and climb. So, I do not think that is a big risk in any way. I think that's a very solid investment, a good sound decision. Now, to talk about a big risk investment would be something a little more nuanced, something that, you have a good idea, it might be a good speculative book, but it's nothing confirmed. So, for example, I just recently picked up X-Men 221, the first Sinister, and that's a book that great spec book, don't get me wrong, and it is climbing in price. But it's a bit of a risk. We could never get Sinister. That's always a possibility. We could get Sinister 7 years from now. Who knows? It's hard to say. There's no confirmation of any information. So you could get that book and just be sitting on it and sitting on it and sitting on it. Another good example, actually, would be everybody's been freaking out for a while now for X-Men 4, First Omega Red, Volume 2. And there were talks about it maybe being in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Didn't happen. There's talks that it might be in Black Widow. Now, granted, I think some of that movie takes place in Russia, or maybe most of it or all of it. So, good speculation book for sure. And again, another book that, went from nothing to like a $60 book. But, Black Widow could come and go and no Omega Red happens, and then that book might just tank. If you've been putting, $50 into that book, it might just turn into nothing. Don't get me wrong. There's always the flip of that coin. If Omega Red appears in the movie and he's super awesome, and maybe we're not done with him and he's going to lead into something else, $100 book, $150 book maybe. But it's always a gamble, and that's what I kind of enjoy about this. There's, like I said, small risk investments, and I love small risk investments. Don't get me wrong, but the big risk investments can sometimes be some of your biggest payouts, because it's one of those things that nobody really knows for certain. And I'm going to give another example of what might controversially be considered a big risk investment, or at least we'll say maybe a mid risk investment. So we all know the Eternals are coming, which, you know, like I said, anything that is set in stone, that is a great, great, very small risk investment. But I do feel, because I just, for the shop, we went and picked up a big comic collection. And we picked up 2 Eternals ones. I'm like, oh yeah, these gotta be worth something. Don't get me wrong. It's a good book. It's definitely worth a lot of money. But I still feel that it's not really as crazy as some other books might be that are, you know, from that age period. And also, it's just, you know, it's not... I feel like it could have a higher ceiling, I guess is where I'm trying to get with it. And part of that is because the general fan base, like even devout comic readers for decades, you know, Eternals isn't necessarily something that they know about. And like me, I have no problem admitting that I don't know anything about the Eternals. And I've kind of, for me, I was like, you know what, that's kind of fun. Let me go into this movie not really knowing that much about them and see how much I enjoy it. Because, you know, for the most part, when I watch a Marvel movie, I know the characters, I know the lore, but behind their different stories, and, you know, this and that or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I have a pretty good idea what might happen in the movie. But this one is kind of, well, I was going to say the first time, probably the second time I'd say, that I really just, I have no idea what's going to happen. And it's kind of exciting for me. The first time being Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy was a massive hit. Both movies, personally, I love the second movie better. And again, I knew nothing about the Guardians going into it, and I feel like most people didn't either. And at the time, people were like, Guardians of the Galaxy, what are they doing? They're really, you know, reaching for the bottom of the barrel. They've run out of characters. Marvel's over. And some of the best movies in the whole lineup of the 20 whatever movies that they have. So Eternals could do the same thing, or it could, you know, there's always the possibility that it could plummet. So I don't think that people are heavily investing into Eternals keys. I think it's like the first 3 are the really good ones. See, I don't even know what the good keys are. That's how little I know about it. But I don't think people are really investing super hard into Eternals keys because, again, they don't know. And they don't know if this movie's going to work. The trailer, I'm, you know, excited for it. But at the same time, I think when people first saw the Guardians trailer, it had this fun, wild, crazy energy that really got people hyped. And this doesn't have that. I think this is going for a more... not just wacky fun movie, but like maybe just an actual like well-written movie, and, you know, pivot off that as its strength rather than lots of don't get me wrong, I think there's some good writing in Guardians, especially Guardians 2, but I think this movie isn't trying to be so loud and boisterous. I think it's just trying to be a good movie from what I've gathered from what I know about the director and stuff like that. So I'm excited for it regardless, but I just feel like not everyone is quite as sound in if this is going to be a good investment book or not, because there is no confirmation that the movie will be well received. And, you know, that's kind of everything. I just looked at the book earlier today. Like I said, I think the book goes for like $300 to $400 or something, Eternals 1. So, you know, you could get that book, and then maybe when the movie comes out, if everyone loves the movie, it could be a $1,000 book. Or, and I'm using rough numbers here, like I said, I don't even entirely remember what I looked at it before. But, you know, if the movie, even if it is a good movie, but it's just, you know, like I said, Guardians was fun. Even my mom likes Guardians, and she doesn't like anything to do with Marvel. She doesn't care about any of the Marvel heroes or whatever. But, you know, Guardians had the fun old school soundtracks, and it had so much to draw in so many people that I think there's a lot to that. Even if Eternals is just a really solid movie, and like I said, just really well written and well crafted, I don't know if it'll reach that same hype that Guardians has. And that's a high, ladder to reach to. But and a little, unjustly, unfairly to say, if this movie's not as good as some of the best movies in all of the 20 whatever movies that exist in the MCU, then it's not saying it's worthless, but I even saw that like with Jupiter's Legacy as an example. I enjoyed the show. I thought, the first season was great, and I said first season is the only season because they canceled it. And I feel like a lot of the negative feedback was just because it's not as good as The Boys, and it's not as good as Invincible. Just because those shows are A+, and Jupiter's Legacy might be an A-, you should debate or whatever, I'm just using rough examples. But, just because it's, not as good doesn't make it bad. I enjoyed it. I do think there were pacing issues, mainly, was my concern. I didn't think the action looked very good, but I enjoyed the story. I thought it was a solid story. And I was excited to see where it was going to go, especially some characters were, like the daughter, for example, was just irritating. I didn't like her, but I feel like she was crafted that way, and I feel like she was supposed to have growth in the second season, and we'll never get that now, which is unfortunate. And that's just how it is. So we could have something similar like that with Eternals, where it could be very well, written and acted and put together, but it's not Guardians. And so I feel like people tend to be like, oh, there's no like leveling. It's either I love this or I hate this. I don't know why the internet especially is like that, and people in general are like that, I feel. But because it's not as good as, theoretically, I don't know. I'm just assuming it's not as good as The Guardians, because that is a high bar, like I said. Really amazing movies. So, I really don't think it'll be as fun as The Guardians. I think that's an easy statement to make. But because it's not as well received as Guardians, people are going to be like, nah, this is trash. Not necessarily, but it's possible, and I'm kind of nervous for that. So, because like I said, we picked up 2 number 1s, and I'm like, man, I kind of want to grab that book. But I just don't know how people are going to react to it. And, it might be something that I regret later. I don't pick up the book, and then, like I said, after the movie comes out, it's a $1,000 book. It's hard to say, but I think that is a kind of a bigger risk, is what I'm getting at. That's my point. I do think for the most part, the big and small risk really just depends on how much information we have on it. But I wanted to bring up Eternals because I thought it was an interesting point to bring into the conversation. And I'm sure there's other interesting, more variable circumstances out there. That's just, some of the books that I thought about, some of the series that I'm, thinking about getting or whatever might have already. And but I'd love to know if there's some books that you're kind of conflicted on. Is it potentially a big risk? And are you kind of on the fence about whether you should do it? Like I said, I think sometimes the bigger the risk you take, the higher reward you can get, but obviously the more you can bust as well. So let me know if you have some comics that you'd like to talk about in the comments below, because I love talking about this stuff. I really do. I could talk about it all day. So I respond to every comment. Let's talk about it. That's going to be it for today. I might do tomorrow, like I said, I will be at Lexi PopCon. I might do some kind of video while I'm there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't really know. It's the first time they're doing this, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just kind of, play it by ear and have some fun. Hope to see you there, like I said, if you're in the area. But that's going to be it for today. I will see you tomorrow with some cool comics for sale.